Out of order.
Mr. Sir, you could call me out of order because this is out of order. This undermines the basic decency of this committee. Yes, maybe overrule a Rule 4, but at least address the Rule 4 point of order that senators were elected to debate issues and debate nominees. This is absolutely insane.
Hey,
what is the rush? Sir, I am interrupting because you're interrupting a regular point of order. At least address my point of order. I have the right to do that by the rules of this committee. If you want to overrule the rules of committee, then do so. But this is not in any way in order. You are obligated to address a point of order according to the rules of this committee. You could overrule me by a Senate vote.
The U.S. Senate calls itself the world's most deliberative body. But what happens when deliberation itself is denied? In one of the most heated Judiciary Committee hearings in recent memory, Cory Booker, Coons, and Adam Schiff clashed head-on with Chuck Grassley over his refusal to honor Rule 4 during debate on a Donald Trump judicial nominee. What began as a procedural dispute spiraled into a moral showdown, with Democrats demanding fairness, respect for Senate norms, and the right to be heard. Today, we break down the fireworks, the stakes, and why this moment matters for American democracy.
We'll go to Bovey's nomination. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of
according to
personal-
Rule 4 of the committee, we have the right to continue to debate this nomination.
No.
I'm invoking Rule 4 of the committee. We have the right to debate this nomination.
You're
And
out of
I'm
order.
seconding
Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Booker's demand for a vote on his request to hear from the whistleblower.
Mr. Chairman, you should at least acknowledge my Rule 4 point of order.
You're out of order.
I don't understand this. What are you afraid of about even debating this,
I, by proxy-
putting things on the record, hearing from every senator? Dear God, that's what our obligations are. It's to state our reasons for debate. At least address the Rule 4 point of order that we're calling. There's no need to rush this. What are we afraid of? We're not pressing for the 2-hour rule like you all did when you were in the minority. We're simply asking for a credible amount of time to air our concerns before the vote. We respect each other in this committee. We respect the understanding that we have things to say. But yet we're doing this in a way that makes no sense to me. And it makes no sense to me because we're not trying to do things like force the committee to close or force a 2-hour rule. This is about understanding that people on this side have a responsibility to state their issues.
You're out of order.
Mr. Sir, you could call me out of order because this is out of order. This undermines the basic decency of this committee. Yes, maybe overrule a Rule 4, but at least address the Rule 4 point of order that senators were elected to debate issues and debate nominees. This is absolutely insane.
Hey, you're
what is the rush? Sir, I am interrupting because you're interrupting a regular point of order. At least address my point of order. I have the right to do that by the rules of this committee. If you want to overrule the rules of committee, then do so. But this is not in any way in order. You are obligated to address a point of order according to the rules of this committee. You could overrule me by a Senate vote. You're violating your own rules. The parliamentarian has been clear about this. The parliamentarian has been clear. You could overrule the point of order I'm doing, but you have to follow the precedents and procedures of this committee. This is outrageous that you're not allowing senators to have their fair say before a controversial nominee is being done. This is unbelievable. This is unjust. This is wrong. It is the further deterioration of this committee's integrity. With a person like this, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of hearing from Coons? From hearing from one of my colleagues? From hearing from Adam Schiff? What is the fear here? Have at least the decency to have a vote on my point of order regarding Rule 4. I have respect for you, Mr. Chairman. We've served together for more than a decade, but this is outrageous. This is unacceptable. This is wrong. It is wrong. And why? Why? What is the rush to take another half hour to listen to people? What is the rush? What are we afraid of, Mr. Chairman? What are we afraid of? I do not understand why senators can't debate a nominee as we've done when both sides have been in the majority to take the time. What is the thing that you are so afraid of from hearing from my Senate colleagues, this is a violation of the precedents of this committee. We're not trying some stunt here to try to force a 2-hour rule like you all did when you were in the minority. We just want to be heard before a controversial vote. Sir, this is wrong, and you know it. You are a person of integrity. How could you be doing this? At least have a vote on my point of order. Sir, with all appeals to your decency, with all appeals to your integrity, with all appeals to past jurisdiction and past precedent, why are you doing this? This is outrageous.
This is a kangaroo court. That's all we have here,
This
Mr.
is
Chairman.
wrong. To violate your own rules without going by the mandates of the parliamentarian. This is unbelievable. There's a way to do this. If you want to force this through, if you want to ram this through, there's a way to do it in accordance to the rules as spelled out by the parliamentarian. It is simple. It is clear. There's a pathway to achieve what you're trying to achieve. But sir, this lacks decency. It lacks decorum. It shows that you do not want to simply hear from your colleagues. This is absolutely wrong. And sir, this is to me one of those moments where we are not showing common respect for each other on both sides. I have sat here when we were in the majority and listened to my colleagues' arguments, listened to their passionate statements, and then we voted. This is not that. This is us simply trying to rush through one of the most controversial nominees we've had under this presidential administration. Sir, God bless America. You are a good man. You are a decent man. Why are you doing this? What is Donald Trump saying to you that are making you do something which is violating the decorum of this committee, the rules of this committee, the decency and the respect that we have each other to at least hear each other out? I've sat through so many long speeches of my colleagues, heard their objections, listened with sincerity to try to see what their arguments are. But we are not doing that. Sir, this is wrong, and you know it. There are some people on this committee who are the least firebrand people, and they've walked out. Some of the least controversial people in the Senate, some of the people that worked the hardest to find bipartisan common ground have just walked out of this committee. And you don't even seem to care, but I know you do. I know your heart, Senator Grassley. This is wrong. I know the kind of person you are, and you know this is wrong. This is not necessary. What is another half an hour to allow senators to be heard? It's what the Constitution mandates. It's the ideals of the United States Senate. The world's most deliberative body should take a decent amount of time to deliberate. But here we're not doing that. Here we are jamming this through with some sense of false urgency. It's one thing not to hear from whistleblowers. It's another thing not to hold another hearing. But to not even allow my colleagues to have their moment to speak against this justice is just wrong. And I know you know this. I know you know this. The only time this rule has ever been overturned by both parties was done when one minority was trying to pull some stunt to stop the committee from hearing. This is not that. This is not the 2-hour rule. This is a basic element of the ideals of this committee, sir. It is the basic understanding of having debate and deliberation. It's a basic understanding of we can listen to each other even if we disagree, that we should have time and space and a forum to listen. Sir, this is just wrong in every way. It is wrong in every single way. This is an abuse of power. It's an undermining of the well-being and the integrity of this Senate and this committee that I for so long I've been so honored to be a part of. This is wrong, sir, and I join with my colleagues in leaving.
The Senate Judiciary Committee was never meant to be a place of speed and shortcuts, but rather the chamber where deliberation, debate, and accountability play out in their most serious form. Yet in this latest showdown, led by Chairman Chuck Grassley and the Republican majority, those traditions were trampled in real time. What unfolded was not simply a routine committee vote on a Donald Trump judicial nominee. It was a direct confrontation over the very rules and norms that have defined Senate governments for decades. Senators Cory Booker, Chris Coons, and Adam Schiff made it clear from the outset that they were not going to remain silent while Republicans rushed through a nomination without honoring Rule 4, a safeguard that guarantees minority members the right to debate and hold meaningful discussions before such consequential votes. The Democrats' protest was not just procedural nitpicking, it was a moral stand against the erosion of fairness, transparency, and democratic accountability. Cory Booker, in particular, brought his characteristic fire to the room. With a steady voice that quickly escalated into passionate conviction, he reminded the committee that Rule 4 exists to prevent precisely this kind of steamrolling. "You are silencing us," he declared, directing his words at Chairman Grassley. His point was simple. A judicial appointment is a lifetime decision that will shape the future of constitutional rights, civil liberties, and the balance of power for generations to come. Rushing this process dishonors not only the Senate, but the American people. Beside him, Chris Coons reinforced the argument, calmly but firmly underscoring that Senate rules are not optional suggestions. They are binding traditions that have long allowed the minority party to have a voice. And then came Adam Schiff, whose measured but cutting tone carried weight. He reminded the committee that legitimacy comes from process as much as from outcome. "If you cannot respect the rules," Schiff said, "then how can the public respect your decisions?" It was a searing indictment of a process being bent, twisted, and ultimately broken to accommodate one man's nominees, Donald Trump's. Chuck Grassley, for his part, remained unmoved. The chairman's gavel struck again and again, ruling Democrats out of order and insisting that the committee must press forward. But the more Grassley ignored the Democrats' pleas, the more obvious it became that this was less about efficiency and more about power. Republicans have been obsessed with reshaping the federal judiciary under Trump, stacking the courts with ideologues who will tilt rulings on voting rights, reproductive freedom, environmental protections, and executive power for decades. The refusal to honor Rule 4 was not an accident. It was a deliberate strategy to deny Democrats any meaningful input, to ensure that nothing slowed down the march toward locking in Trump's legacy on the bench. This was not deliberation, it was bulldozing. The scene grew tense, almost theatrical. Booker leaned forward, his voice breaking through the din, accusing Republicans of transforming the Judiciary Committee into a kangaroo court. Chris Coons gestured toward the chairman with an air of disbelief, as if asking whether Grassley truly believed this was what the founders intended when they designed the Senate as the cooling saucer of democracy. Schiff's eyes narrowed, and his words landed like a sharp rebuke. This isn't just about today's nominee. It's about whether this committee still believes in its own rules. Each Democrat spoke not only to Grassley and their Republican colleagues, but to the American people watching. Their message was clear. If we let this go unchallenged, then tomorrow's hearings will be even less fair, even less accountable, even less democratic. The Republican defense was predictable. They claimed efficiency. They claimed precedent. They claimed the urgency of filling judicial vacancies. But beneath those talking points was a far more cynical reality, that Donald Trump's allies understood the courts to be their insurance policy, their shield against the growing backlash to their policies and their conduct. By stacking the judiciary with loyalists, Republicans aimed to secure rulings that would uphold voter suppression laws, weaken labor rights, and roll back environmental regulations long after Trump himself had left office. For Booker, Coons, and Schiff, the Rule 4 fight symbolized something much larger than a single nominee. It symbolized the struggle to defend democracy from a slow-motion hijacking. This is where the passion of the Democratic senators shone brightest. Booker's voice, rising in righteous anger, captured the frustration of millions of Americans who feel that the system has been gamed against them. Coons' steady insistence on principle reflected the Democratic belief that rules matter, even when they are inconvenient. Schiff's measured rebuke provided the gravitas of a seasoned legislator warning that legitimacy cannot be manufactured by brute force. Together, they represented the Democratic Party's willingness to draw a line in the sand even when the numbers are against them. It was less about winning the moment than about exposing the process for what it was, a sham. Critics may argue that Democrats should have walked out, staged a protest, or shut down the proceedings entirely. But by staying in the room, by pressing their case on the record, Booker, Coons, and Schiff ensured that history would remember not just the injustice, but also the resistance. They reminded Americans that even when democracy is under siege, it can still be defended by those willing to speak truth to power. And they exposed Chuck Grassley's complicity not as a neutral arbiter of Senate tradition, but as a willing participant in Donald Trump's power play. The chairman may have had the gavel, but the Democrats had the moral authority. As the exchange continued, the hearing room felt less like a legislative chamber and more like a battlefield. The Republicans were determined to press forward. The Democrats were determined to resist. The stakes were nothing less than the integrity of the judicial confirmation process. If Rule 4 could be brushed aside today, then what would stop future chairmen from discarding every other safeguard tomorrow? If debate could be silenced in this moment, what would prevent future majorities from silencing it forever? These were the questions hanging over the chamber, even as Grassley called for the roll call vote. The Democrats' protest may not have stopped the nomination, but it crystallized the stakes for all to see. Outside the hearing room, the implications reverberated across the political landscape. Progressives saw in Booker's passion a rallying cry for stronger resistance. Moderates saw in Coons' reasoned arguments a plea for a return to civility and fairness. And activists saw in Schiff's sharp words a recognition that legitimacy must be earned, not declared. Meanwhile, Republicans outside the room quietly celebrated the speed with which they could reshape the courts. But their celebration carried a cost. The public could see clearly that the process was being rigged. Transparency, once the Senate's strongest defense against charges of corruption, was now weaponized to reveal exactly how far the majority was willing to go. This Rule 4 showdown will be remembered not for the name of the Trump nominee in question, but for the way it exposed the raw power politics of judicial confirmations in the Trump era. It revealed a Republican Party so determined to cement its influence that it was willing to shred tradition, silence debate, and ignore its own rules. It revealed Democratic senators who, even in the minority, refused to let injustice pass unchallenged. And it revealed a Senate that is drifting ever further from the deliberative body it was designed to be, into something closer to a partisan machine. The lesson for Americans is sobering, but also galvanizing. If democracy is to survive, it will not be because those in power choose to honor tradition. It will be because ordinary people demand accountability, demand fairness, and demand leaders who value rules over raw power. Booker, Coons, and Schiff gave voice to that demand in the committee room. Now the responsibility falls to the public to echo it in the voting booth, in activism, and in the ongoing struggle to defend democratic institutions from those who would hollow them out. When future historians look back on this moment, they will not see just another committee fight. They will see a flashpoint in the broader battle for American democracy. They will see Cory Booker's fire, Chris Coons' steadiness, Adam Schiff's sharp rebuke, Chuck Grassley's silence in the face of principle, and Donald Trump's shadow looming over it all. And they will ask, did Americans rise to the challenge of defending democracy when it mattered most? That question remains unanswered, but one thing is clear: the fight is far from over, and Democrats have shown they are ready to carry it forward.